Clara always knew the world was full of challenges, but she never imagined just how cruel life could be. Ever since she was a kid, there was this restlessness inside her, pushing her to discover everything, to understand every little detail around her. Her dad, with his gentle smile, used to say she had a curiosity that would take her far. But that curiosity didn't prepare her for what was coming. When her parents died in that car accident, something inside her broke. It wasn't just the sound of metal twisting that hit her, but the silence that followed. That silence. It felt like a sentence. In that emptiness, Clara learned a hard truth. Life doesn't wait for you to heal. Every second, the world keeps spinning, relentless, indifferent to your pain. She had to keep going, no matter how hard it was. Because sometimes, it's in the darkness that you discover what you're really made of. Her dreams of becoming a brilliant engineer? They froze in that instant. Now, Clara had to think fast. Her sister Emily's medical bills started piling up, and the insurance money barely covered the basics. Engineering, with its promise of stability down the road, wasn't an option anymore. Clara didn't have the luxury of time. She needed something right now, something that brought in quick money. Every day felt like a race against the clock. So, Clara put aside her projects and complex calculations. She grabbed her tools and started fixing things: old radios, broken TVs, phones with cracked screens. Anything that paid in cash, on the spot. The apartment they lived in, once a cozy refuge, now felt way too small, suffocating. The walls that once felt safe now seemed to be closing in on them, squeezing out any trace of hope. In every corner there was a memory of happier days. A faded family photo, the distant echo of Emily's laughter in the walls. But the kitchen table? It was buried under a mountain of overdue bills, a cruel reminder of their reality. The shelves, once filled with books and toys, were now crowded with broken electronics. A hobby turned into a fight for survival. Emily, lying on the small couch, looked so fragile. Her skin, once full of life, was now pale, almost see-through. Her eyes, which once sparkled with curiosity, were now tired, shadowed. Every day, Clara watched her sister slip away a little more. Emily, always so full of energy, now seemed like a shadow of the little girl she used to be. She had aplastic anemia, a condition that stopped her bone marrow from making enough blood cells. Each week brought new symptoms: weakness, paleness, unexplained bruises. Blood transfusions had become the norm. Without a bone marrow transplant, the doctors said, her chances of recovery were slim. Clara spent her days fixing anything she could get her hands on. Her fingers were quick, moving over the delicate parts as if she could bring them back to life. But no matter how hard she worked, it was never enough. The money she earned barely covered rent, and the bills just kept stacking up, a pile that threatened to bury them. Every minute she spent fixing those broken devices was a minute she could pretend she had some control over their lives, that she could fix not just the machines, but their fate. Then, the inevitable happened. Emily collapsed in the middle of the living room. For a moment, everything stopped. Clara's heart pounded in her ears as she rushed to help her sister, frozen by a fear that felt endless. The hospital was cold, impersonal, with the sharp smell of disinfectant and the harsh white light from fluorescent bulbs making everything feel even more distant. When the doctor finally appeared, his expression said it all. "Emily needs surgery," the doctor said, with a calm that didn't match the weight of his words. He explained that without a bone marrow transplant, Emily had only a few months. Even with the surgery, there were no guarantees. Clara felt the ground drop out from under her. Surgery. A transplant. Words that felt like both a death sentence and a glimmer of hope. Something that could save Emily, but seemed as unreachable as the stars. It wasn't just about money. It was Emily's life, her own life, any dream of a future. And she could barely believe it. The cost wasn't just financial. It was emotional, mental. It was everything. For a moment, Clara was lost. But after what felt like forever, the doctor suggested that Emily could go home, as long as she stayed on strict bed rest and followed a rigorous care routine. The nurses brought out a portable oxygen tank, adjusting it carefully. With a weak smile, Emily was placed in a wheelchair for the ride home. Clara, carrying a bag full of medications and instructions that felt heavier than the world, pushed the chair, feeling a mix of relief and fear. On the ride back, in the Uber, the city seemed distant, the lights too bright, almost painful. The world around them kept spinning, indifferent, as if nothing had changed, as if Clara's life hadn't just been turned upside down. But for her, everything was different. She knew that hope alone wouldn't be enough now. She needed something more. She needed a plan, something real, something she could do to save her sister, to save herself. Because giving up wasn't an option. Not for her. Not for Emily. Back at the apartment, Clara collapsed into the old armchair. She stared at the ceiling, the tears finally escaping, running down her face. She let herself feel the pain, the fear, the helplessness, all at once. But then, something inside her ignited. A fire, a rage, a fierce determination that couldn't be extinguished. She wiped away the tears, looked at Emily sleeping on the couch, with the oxygen tank softly humming beside her. And she knew what she had to do. Seeing her sister there, so fragile yet still breathing, a new strength grew inside Clara. Emily needed her, and Clara wouldn't fail. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision ahead of her. She knew that every second, every minute, every breath would be a fight from now on. And she was ready to fight. For Emily. For herself. To fix what was broken, even if it meant facing fate with her own hands. Determined not to give up, Clara dove into her makeshift workshop tucked away in the corner of the room, where the only light was the dim glow of a flickering lamp reflecting off the cracked screens of the devices she had salvaged. The apartment was small, but in that cramped corner, Clara found a sliver of hope. It was there, amidst the heavy silence of sleepless nights, that she worked tirelessly, her quick and skilled hands turning what many saw as trash into something of value. The constant hum of soldering, the metallic smell of burned wires, the suffocating heat of working for hours on end, these were all part of her ritual. She dismantled, studied, and repaired. Each piece that came back to life was a small victory, a step closer to the impossible. It was during one of these long nights that Mark appeared for the first time. Mark, an old college buddy who, like Clara, had been forced to abandon his dreams, though for different reasons. He walked in carrying the smell of rain and a bag full of spare parts. "I brought what I could find," he said, his casual tone masking the concern in his eyes. He knew Clara was nearing her limit, but Clara, her hands already deep in an old radio circuit, merely nodded in thanks. She was focused, intent. There was no time for distractions. Alongside Mark came Gabriel, an old acquaintance who had become a father figure to many young people in the community. Gabriel was a man of few words, but had a generous heart. He too had lost much in life, but carried his own pain with a quiet dignity. "You have the Midas touch," he would say, a slight smile on his face as he watched Clara work. "Turning trash into gold." But Clara wasn't fooled. She knew she needed more than encouraging words. She needed a plan, a strategy. And it was Gabriel who planted the seed in her mind. What if you turned this skill into something bigger? A business, perhaps? The idea seemed absurd at first, but the more Clara thought about it, the more it made sense. It wasn't just about fixing devices. It was about giving hope to something that seemed irreparably broken. It was about turning what was discarded into something useful again. And wasn't that what she was trying to do with her own life? But turning an idea into reality is never easy. The first steps were tentative. Clara and Mark started collecting discarded devices from local stores and neighbors who had given up on their gadgets. They improvised a repair system, with Gabriel helping to refine the process with his accumulated experience and wisdom. But soon, challenges began to arise. Money, or the lack thereof, was always an issue. They needed more tools, parts they couldn't just improvise. Clara decided she needed a loan. She sat in the bank's waiting room, the air conditioning blowing an artificial chill that made her bones shiver. Around her, people seemed comfortable, secure in their daily transactions. But Clara knew she was on unstable ground. When her number was called, she took a deep breath and entered the manager's office. She had practiced her pitch many times. She explained her plan, her vision. The manager, a middle-aged man with a permanent look of boredom, listened without lifting his eyes from the papers on his desk. "Unfortunately, we cannot approve your loan," he said finally, almost automatically, as if he had made up his mind before she even spoke. "You don't have sufficient collateral. Your credit history is unfavorable." His words blended into a cacophony of denials. Clara stood up, feeling the heat of frustration on her face. She thanked him, trying to maintain her composure, but inside she felt defeated. But not for long. When she left the bank, the blinding sun hit her like a punch. She felt anger rise, a new energy pushing her forward. She couldn't afford to feel defeated. There was a fight that needed to be fought, and if the bank wouldn't help, she'd find another way. When Mark heard about the rejection, he suggested something risky, seeking out local investors, business people willing to bet on her idea. It was a shot in the dark, but Clara knew she couldn't afford to back down. They set up meetings, pitched their plan to anyone willing to listen. Most shook their heads, skeptical. "This will never work," they said. "You're just two desperate kids." Clara felt the weight of their words, each rejection a blow. But she kept believing. She had to believe. She had no other choice. It was at one of these meetings that Clara found someone who believed in her. He wasn't a tycoon, nor a big-time businessman, but a small shop owner who saw something in her eyes. "You've got the same fire I had when I started," he said. "I can't invest much, but I can help with what I have." It was a small start, but for Clara, it was all she needed. A chance, a tiny spark of hope. Every obstacle she faced only made Clara more determined. She remembered Emily, her fragile breathing, the sound of the oxygen machine buzzing next to the couch. Every no she received, every door closed, was an opportunity to fight harder, to prove them wrong. She knew she couldn't fail, not when her sister's life depended on it. Because for Clara, failure was never an option. She was on a mission, and giving up wasn't in her vocabulary. And then, on one of those long, grueling days, with her hands dirty and her heart heavy, something unexpected happened. A message arrived on her phone. An opportunity. Something big. Something that could change everything. Finally, after weeks thick with frustration and sleepless nights, Clara stood there, face to face with the moment she had prayed for, dreamed about, nearly begged the universe for. She found herself in the lobby of an imposing building in the heart of the city, the kind of place that made even the most confident feel small. The mirrored glass windows reflected her slender figure, and her heart, pounding in her chest, felt like it wanted to escape. She ascended to the 20th floor, her palms slick with sweat gripping the strap of her bag that held her sketches and prototypes. The cold, modern light of the corridors illuminated the perfect lines of the marble walls, contrasting brutally with the heat burning inside her, the urgency that kept her standing. Sophie Moreau's office was almost overwhelmingly grand, yet it exuded a simple minimalist elegance. Every detail, from the glass desk to the modern art hanging on the walls, screamed power and success. Sophie sat. Behind her desk, a figure of sophistication and intimidation. Her sharp eyes scrutinized Clara with a hidden interest. The windows behind Sophie revealed a breathtaking view of the city, skyscrapers gleaming in the afternoon sun, almost seeming to be made of gold. To Clara, it felt as if she were being observed by her very own future. "You have 10 minutes, Sophie said, her voice devoid of any emotion. Clara felt a knot form in her throat. It was now or never. The office seemed to close in around her, the air thickening, almost suffocating. Her stomach churned, but she knew she had to focus. She took a deep breath, trying to steady the tremor in her hands as she opened her bag and began to pull out the prototypes. With determination, Clara started to explain her idea for sustainable repairs. She talked about using old parts to breathe new life into electronic devices, cutting down on waste. She explained how her technique not only saved money, but also catered to a market, increasingly concerned with environmental impact. Each sentence was a silent plea, an attempt to make Sophie see what she saw, a different world, a better world. But Sophie showed no reaction. Her face was an impenetrable mask. Sophie's eyes were inscrutable, cold, almost cutting. Clara continued to speak, feeling the weight of the atmosphere, the judgment in the eyes of the executives seated at the table. She knew she needed to convince Sophie not just of the feasibility of her project, but also of the urgent need for change. And more than that she, Clara, was the right person to lead this transformation. "Interesting," Sophie suddenly said, interrupting her. "But I'm not convinced." Her words landed like a blow, striking Clara hard. She felt the ground shift beneath her feet, her confidence crumbling as if it were made of sand. "You don't have enough experience. And frankly, I can't imagine how you'd compete with established companies in the market. Your idea is too idealistic. Naive, even." For a moment, Clara froze. Sophie's words cut deep, far more than she had anticipated. All the effort, all the struggle, now felt pointless. Tears welled in her eyes, burning, but she held them back. Not here, not now. This was her last chance. If she failed, there would be no more hope for Emily. The sound of her sister's heart monitors in their apartment echoed in her mind, each beep a cruel reminder of what was at stake. "Please," Clara said, her voice trembling, yet infused with a new determination. "I understand your concerns, but I believe you're looking at this the wrong way." She straightened up, taking a deep breath, battling the fear that threatened to paralyze her. "The world needs change. People want change. They want an alternative. Something beyond this endless cycle of buying and tossing. And I can make that happen. I just need a chance." Sophie watched her, the silence in the room almost unbearable. Each second stretched into eternity. Finally, Sophie leaned forward, her elbows resting on the glass table. "You're determined. I'll give you that," she said slowly, as if weighing each word. "And maybe there's something there. But know this. This is a risky bet. And if you fail, there won't be a second chance." Clara felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. It was a small opening, but it was all she needed. "I won't fail," she replied firmly, her words carrying a conviction that couldn't be shaken. "You'll see." Sophie leaned back in her chair, a mysterious smile forming on her lips. "Very well. Let's see what you're capable of." And in that moment, Clara knew she had made it. The road ahead was still uncertain, filled with challenges and obstacles she couldn't foresee. But now, for the first time in a long while, she felt something she had forgotten. Hope. A true, tangible hope. A hope that could save Emily. But Clara was about to discover that this was just the beginning of her real battle. And as she walked out of that office, an unsettling feeling that there was more ahead began to grow inside her. She couldn't afford to fail. Not now, not when she was so close. But what she didn't yet know was that the greatest challenge was just beginning, waiting for her at the next bend in the road. Clara felt a weight lift off her shoulders the moment she saw Sophie sign the contract. The simple sound of the pen scratching the paper felt like a sigh of relief she didn't even know she was holding. All the uncertainty of the past weeks, the sleepless nights, every tear, every moment of despair, it all seemed to finally be behind her. She did it. And most importantly, she secured the chance Emily so desperately needed. Without wasting a moment, contract in hand and the money guaranteed, Clara dashed back to the apartment. Her heart raced, a blend of joy and urgency coursing through her veins. Each step echoed through the building's stairwell, and she could hardly breathe, but that didn't matter. She had to get there quickly. When she flung open the door, she found Emily on the couch, her eyes closed, breathing softly with the help of her oxygen support. Relief washed over Clara. Emily was there, stable, safe. "Emily, we did it!" Clara exclaimed, her voice breaking and breathless. She tried to keep her composure, but the emotion was so powerful, it felt like her words were vibrating in the air. "We have the money for your surgery!" Emily slowly opened her eyes, blinking to clear her vision, trying to grasp what her sister was saying. Even in her weakened state, she managed to muster a small smile. A smile that carried the weight of hope and relief she had been holding for so long. Those words were a safe haven amid a storm that seemed endless. Clara held Emily's hand tightly, feeling the weak yet comforting warmth of her skin, and for a brief moment, the world felt lighter, simpler. In the days that followed, Clara threw herself into preparing for the surgery. It was a whirlwind, but she didn't care. The anxiety was there, but so was a growing sense of hope inside her, step by step. The apartment, once suffocating, now felt like a place of hope. When the day of the surgery arrived, Clara helped Emily rise from the couch. Her hands, firm yet gentle, guided her sister to the waiting taxi outside. The hospital wasn't far, but the journey felt like an eternity. Each beat of Clara's heart was a silent prayer for everything to go well. The hospital, with its bright lights and the smell of disinfectant, felt like another world. Cold, impersonal. Clara could feel her heart racing, but she knew she had to stay strong. For Emily. They arrived, and the nurses quickly whisked Emily away for preparation. Clara lingered behind, watching her sister vanish down the corridors. It hurt. But she took a deep breath, reminding herself why they were there. They were so close to finally overcoming this. The surgery felt long. Each minute stretched into an eternity in the waiting room. Clara sank into a plastic chair, every part of her body tense, waiting, praying. The clock on the wall seemed to mock her, the minutes dragging as if time had stopped. Every time a nurse passed by, Clara held her, breath, waiting, waiting, for Emily. That was all that mattered. Then, the surgeon appeared. He looked weary, but there was a gentleness in his smile. "The surgery was a success," he said. Those words fell like a blessing. Tears of relief streamed down Clara's face, and she didn't even try to hide them. Emily was safe. The nightmare was finally coming to an end. In the days that followed, Clara stayed by Emily's side every moment, holding her hand, speaking softly, giving her strength as she recovered. Each breath Emily took, each heartbeat, felt like a miracle. Slowly, she began to regain her strength. Emily's eyes sparkled once more, and her gentle laughter, a sound Clara had feared she might never hear again, filled the room again. Nothing was more important than seeing her sister come back to life, day by day. With Emily improving, Clara started to envision a new horizon. It wasn't just the relief of having saved her sister. It was more than that. She had created something, built something from nothing, a business, an idea that could genuinely make a difference, not just for her and Emily, but for so many others. She transformed chaos into innovation, need into opportunity. The sustainable repair business she founded didn't just breathe new life into electronics. It offered hope, a reminder that even what is broken can be fixed. The little workshop Clara set up in the apartment flourished. It became a hub of innovation, where young engineers and tech enthusiasts gathered to learn, create, and change the world. Every customer who walked in wasn't just a sale. They were a new story, a fresh chance to inspire. Clara made sure to hire people who, like her, understood the struggle, who had fallen and gotten back up. Because she knew, better than anyone, that sometimes all a person needs is a chance, someone to believe in them. And so, from a moment of desperation, from a point where everything seemed lost, an innovator was born. Clara demonstrated that even in the toughest times, hope and determination can change lives. She didn't just save her family, she built something that could inspire countless others. Each repaired device, each restored piece was a symbol of her journey, of her strength. And Clara knew this was not the end of the story. She had won a battle, but the true war for change, for innovation, was just beginning. Looking toward the future, Clara understood that many challenges lay ahead. But now, she was ready. Because she had learned, in every struggle, in every victory, that when hope and determination walk hand in hand, there are no limits to what can be achieved. And a new great adventure was already on the horizon, just waiting to be lived.